Hey guys, Josh Yoder here, Future Contributions Business Development. You guys keep me coming back every single week. Your success is what keeps me going. The other day I was asked, why do you do what you do? It's not just because I love what I do. I love seeing the results of what I do because your success is my success. And when you're successful, I'm successful. And as I always say, that success does not compete, it dominates. Here in this series, we've been talking about the road to the sale, how to get our mindsets right as salespeople, how to connect properly with the customer so they can meet you before they meet you. So that trust barrier really is eliminated and doesn't totally have to be built just when you arrive. But then also when we come down to close the sale, we have the bridge of rapport. And the bridge of rapport is a key cornerstone of what we teach here at Future Contributions Business Development. And a lot of you have heard this analogy, and the analogy is there's a Grand Canyon between you and the customer every single time. You can be that evil Knievel and try to jump it and crash and burn like a lot of the other ones did. You might get lucky every once in a while, or you could be the other guy who tries to fill the Grand Canyon with their mere words and tries to walk across it. Or you could do it right. If you listen, you can listen your way to a sale. That's right. Listen your way to the sale. In the sale, the customer is going to tell you everything that you need to know to help close them. And I said that right. Help close them. See, we want to connect with the customer and build a bridge of rapport. That rapport really is like the bridge. And that we can walk across the Grand Canyon rather than trying to fly across. Now the customers can hear us, they can see the whites of our eyes, and they trust us. And we really want to separate ourselves in the marketplace. You don't want to get put into the bag all shaken up like all these other contractors and they're randomly just pulling one out. We want to be the company that stood out. We don't want to be put in the bag with everybody else or put on the shelf with all the other estimates. In fact, we don't want to have to follow up. Yeah, that's right. King is the follow-up is king. But hear me here. If you close every deal, you don't have to follow up. How awesome is that? So if you don't like follow-up, close more deals. Now, understandably, excellence or perfection rather is the enemy of excellence. So we are not all perfect yet. I'm far from it. I don't close every deal, but I'm getting pretty close. And a lot of you out there are the same or better, right? But every once in a while, we do have to follow up with those customers. So we also talk about the follow-up process and how that should look and how that works. And coming down to it, really, guys, separating yourself is going to be the biggest element in the trade type businesses. I know we have all these fancy tools with AI and computer technology and email's been around for a long time, right? And been utilized. But one thing that will actually get you to stand out more than ever, old school is the new school, guys, is authentic. I can't even say it right. Tony, can you give me authenticity?
Authenticity.
There we go. Thanks, Tony. Tony, the camera guy. Give him a hand, guys. All right. And more than that, he's the one who just makes me look good. I just talk. He displays everything. So with that being said, we want to be authentic because if we come across as AI and ChatGPT and that person talking, it's not even us, but a virtual image of us. And you get what I'm saying. It's a little cheesy, but it does come across that way to the customer. When you just talk to them over the phone briefly and shoot them an email and give them a $20,000 quote over the phone, you're going to get put in that bag with everybody else. So what we don't want to do is give the customer enough information over the phone, not to set up an appointment, but give them enough information to set one. That's a very fine line. And that's where you don't need to wear every hat in your company. You might be the business owner, the BDC, the accountant and CPA. You need to get away from that as quick as possible and figure out where your strength is as a business owner. We're talking about salespeople today, but a lot of business owners are the salespeople and they shouldn't be. That's right. A lot people say all the time, well, the best person to sell your business is the person who owns the business. That's not true. Knowledge by itself will not push the deal. Getting a person to understand and trust you is what closes the deal. Because remember, there's the big five objections that really come down to everything, but really boils down to two. And that's going to be trust, and that's going to be understanding what you said, because they can trust you all they want, but if they don't understand what you present and who you are and what you have to offer, but they still trusted you, but they were confused, you're not going to close the deal. So what we need to do is as salespeople, our job is to be master communicators. Just because you're a business owner does not mean you are a master communicator. Now, you can grow in these areas. I'm always saying that salespeople are not born, but they're made. But we have different areas of excellence, different areas of successes and callings, and where we do need to be. I mean, I can learn accounting or CPA. I could learn it, and I could have just as much knowledge as somebody else that has it, but not be as good because I'm not passionate about it. I don't want to be. So if you want to be passionate about it, if you want to pursue it, and you feel in the heart of hearts this is what you want to do, and it energizes you and doesn't take energy, but in the end, at the end of the month, and you put all the failures together and the disappointments of salespeople, and you look at it and you still win overall and feeling mental fortitude, sales is for you. But if you're consistently getting beaten down time after time, and you're not investing into yourself, and you're getting crushed by these objections, by the road to the sale, you don't know what your mindset is, you know you have issues, but you don't even have a path to fix it or how to do it. Well, those walls, those waves are going to crash down on you pretty quick. Through Future Contributions Business Development, not only do we develop salespeople, we develop leaders. And the first thing that we need to be as salespeople and entrepreneurs is leaders. We need to be leaders first, because your sales game will only grow to the extent that you do. And that's right, Andrew Haddad, I stole it from you. Andrew Haddad is a co-founder here with Future Contributions, and he says it all the time, and I love it. And it's so true that you will only grow your business or your sales or whatever you're doing will only grow to the extent that you do. So I'm more interested in growing you as a human being to be well-rounded in every aspect of life so that you can touch every area that's important. And from the important things in life, then stems your career, because your career should not be number one in life. Now, we're not here today to talk about life coaching, but it does come in relevance and play in saying that if you're a salesperson and you're in it just for the dollar symbols and for those Benjamins, you are going to fail miserably long term. A lot of salespeople, I call it the rocket ship analogy, because it's just that. They take off like a rocket and they do really, really well, but they never really build a big customer base. And the reason they don't build a big customer base and the reason that they burn out is because they're pushing so hard. There's the evil Knievels trying to jump the Grand Canyon. You know, they look really good, they look awesome, they gather a lot of attention, and they approach that jump, and that's where they're losing the customer, and the deal crashes and burns. It also goes like this. We have a lot of, sales racers. That's right, sales racers. Sales racers are those guys who, those crazy drivers out there that don't stop at the four-way stop signs and drifting through and tearing down the streets and causing chaos. They gather a lot of attention, and a lot of people see them, and they have short-term success. But when it comes to stop signs in a deal, when you can recognize in a customer and that you need to stop talking and start listening. We need to listen more than we speak, and when we speak, it needs to carry weight. And if we do that, it builds trust. So when we come up to these stop signs and we understand, okay, it's time to stop selling again, and go around and start rapport building, change the subject to something personal. When I mean personal, something on the property. I love that swing out there on that tree. I've been looking to build that for my kids. Whatever is real and true to you and something you're actually interested in. Don't make something up. You want to be authentic. And if you can do that and change the subject, come back to it and re-hit it, because they put up a stop sign. So let's stop selling, let's stop pushing, and let's start connecting. And once we do that, we get the green light and we can go through. Because what happens when you run a red light or a stop sign? You get T-bone, you have accidents, you don't always walk away from them, the deal could die, right? So we want to make sure that we are stopping at all stop signs. So I know I'm reviewing a lot here, but we really went through a lot. And these are really the fundamentals of what we do. And if I can tell on myself, I had a really bad sales day the other day. And guys, I teach this stuff. When I say really bad, I close right around 70%. I'm usually closing at 93%. So that's a bad day for me. It's relative to my experience. So I went back and I looked at my day and I recognized that, number one, my mindset was not right. I had a very clouded mindset. I didn't get it right before I started the day. Also, in a weird way, I was very confident. I felt very confident, yet my mindset wasn't right. So I was coming off a little rough around the edges to the customer. And because I was feeling that confident or whatever, and just wasn't relaxed in the deal, I kind of veered off the process of what we teach here at FC. Nothing crazy, just missing a couple fundamental steps. And you got to keep, what I'm saying is you got to keep the basics the basics. I don't care how long you've been doing this. Has anybody ever seen that 30-year-old veteran salesperson and you're like, how? How are you in sales? He's like, I've been for 30 years and been doing sales, and his voice is still downcast, his eyes are still downcast, and you're like, I would never buy from this guy, you know. Well, that's because 20% of all the money is only, or sorry, 100% of all the money is only made up 20% of all the salespeople, because those 80%, or those rocket ships, they did really good for a while, but then they crashed and burned. They hit the stop signs, they keep on getting hit, and they can't keep the long-term success because they are not building a foundation of sales. They're not building the foundation of fundamentals and keeping the basics to basics. If we can keep the basics and never try to reinvent what's working and what works, we will be successful. The best NBA stars in the NFL and the MLB, or anything that you look at professionally, they're naturally gifted, but hard work will beat talent anytime. But you combine hard work with talent, that is what makes a professional. And by working really hard, it's about going over the fundamentals over and over and over again. You know, at some point, Michael Jordan didn't stop shooting basketballs when he got the best. Also, he continued to shoot, but another thing that he did as well is he didn't stop getting coaches. In fact, it's not that he got the best coach in the world and shot basketballs and got taught how to shoot and dribble and everything else. He continued to get better and better coaches as he got better. It's not the other way around, guys. It's not get the best, and when you get really good, you can start, stopping and dying down on it. No, it's time to dive in harder and harder and harder. Guys, we're coming into 2025. What do you want out of next year? What do you want out of this next year? What I want is 100% growth year after year in my marriage, in my personal life with my kids, and my business and sales and anything and everything that I do. I want to grow 100% every single year. A lot of people say grow at 10% in a year and you're doing okay. Well, that's getting put into the bag with all the averages. Do you want to be average, or you don't want to be great? We don't want to be average. We don't want to be, we don't want to do good. We want to be successful. Remember, success does not compete, it dominates. Now, success is also not a tyrant. It's also gentle and it's loving, and we want to help other entrepreneurs. And that's why I do what I do. I could keep everything to myself and just stay, and me and my family could shut our gates and we could just be fine and well, and I wouldn't have near the pressure, and I'd live a simpler life and make probably the same money. It would be no problem, right? But I want to give back. I want to help people. I'm nowhere near the top. There's other guys that are so much further along than I am, but I like to at least share my journey with you and be vulnerable and show you, hey, this is my little bit of success I had, because comparatively to actual success, guys, I'm like this. I'm nothing when it comes to, the huge Tony Robbinsons of the world and things like that. There's so much to learn from these guys. But I had a measure of success. I made a couple million, residually bringing those big numbers in. And I brought those numbers in as a W-4 and W-2 employee, even before I had my business, making millions of dollars. But that wasn't where I wanted to stop. I wanted to start something that I could duplicate myself into somebody else and have that person in the 9-to-5 job that they hated, but had the entrepreneur spirit, but didn't know how to do it. Train them, give them the encouragement and the tools to do it, a platform to rocket ship them into space, because without it, a lot of people are just scared to start. And it's amazing to me when it comes to sales, it's a lot the same way. It's just about taking the starting point. It's not about how, you don't have to figure out how you're going to finish the race. You just got to know what the end result is, right? So when you're in the sales game, you're in the life game, you're an entrepreneur game, and you're starting on that starting line. You can't start until you step on the starting line. You can't begin until you start. Half the battle, guys, is getting to the starting line. And if you're anything like me, you are an overthinker, and you always underestimate the ability to get through a problem, because all problems have the same solution, and that's an answer. And if we will open our ears and our hearts and our spirits to it, there's always an answer through every problem. And if you're scared of problems, guys, don't get into sales, don't get into business. In fact, just shut your bedroom door, and then you still have you, because you're your biggest problem. I'm my biggest problem, right? We could go to the ends of the earth and we'd still have ourselves, and we need to work on ourselves, right? So what I'm getting at is, in 2025, we need to step it up. I need to step it up, right? We want to have 100% growth. We want to get out there, and with every problem that presents itself, there's going to be an answer. So when we start this race, we don't have to figure out the in between. We need to figure out where the finish line is. And if we start from the end in mind and calculate that way, we can then run the race. And we know that it might not be the pace where we need to be at. We need to pick up the pace. You know, you have those track stars and you're the coaches. They tell them what their pace time is. Your projected pace time is this. You need to step it up at least 0.1 miles an hour or whatever else it is. And that's why we have business coaches, guys. You know, that's why I'm coached by Andrew Haddad. That's why I have other guys around me that coach me and that could see holes that I can't see. And that's why we have Future Contributions Business Development, is for you entrepreneurs and you salespeople as you're out there. And as you're building your businesses and building your legacy, we want to come alongside of you. And we have built in this platform an opportunity for those who have no opportunity now have an open door to come in affordably and start and get connected and starting the right way. In sales and in closing, we came down to the objections. And the objection is really where everybody wants to start, right? Everybody wants to start with, how do you overcome an objection? But it really starts with our mindsets of who we are, looking into the mirror and liking what we're seeing, or at least liking the plan to become a better person. So when we come down to closing the deal, because I know that's where everybody wants to be, we had 2 different series now, or 2 different podcasts on closing the deal and going over different objections. You know, some of them we covered were the spousal objection, the authority objection, and understanding that the authority objection, the spousal objection are different. That the spousal objection, the partner knows that spouse very, very well. And it's really just about saying, hey, I'm sure you know your wife better than I do, right? And you probably know her better than anybody else. You know, you can use those strategies. When it comes to an authority objection, you don't know your boss as well as you know your wife. You got to use a different strategy. And we have doorkeepers, we have gatekeepers, we have people keeping us from the decision makers. So we talked about treating somebody like a millionaire, and they'll spend money like they are, treating somebody like a decision maker, and they'll make a decision like they are, or get you to somebody who can make that decision. We talked about making everybody of importance in the room. When we walk into a room, everybody is just as important as the buyer. Number one, that's going to give you credibility in the other people's eyes. Everybody is influenced. You know, our entire thought patterns, our entire life, everything that we do is pre-programmed to a certain extent and influenced by something. So when we're making a decision, I've really rarely ever had a husband and wife or a boss and employee sitting at the table that did not look at each other and give each other the nod before they said yes. If there's not somebody, or even if it's by themselves in the room, they're typically, hey, I need to talk to this other person or whatever, what have you. You have those objections, right? Well, that's coming down because they're influenced. Even though they're a decision maker, something else is going to influence them. So we want to make sure that we are influencing the influencers that is going to influence the sale. And it comes down to common courtesy and politeness, doesn't it? You know, we don't want to ignore anybody else. We don't want to ignore the little cats or the dogs either. You know, we welcome them in too. We're walking to somebody else's home, and we need to understand what we're walking ourselves into. We're walking into a culture, we're walking into a lifestyle and mindsets that are different than ours, that our lifestyles could be drastically different. So how do you connect with somebody? And every deal always has the common denominator. You have something they want, and they have something you need. You need their business to continue to make money as a salesperson. You need their money to continue to be in business as a business owner, to continue to stay in business. And that's no hiding that. And this is an objection we haven't talked about. And that's you're just trying to sell me objection. Or um, you're a fantastic salesperson. Oh, you're good at selling me. You're a fantastic salesperson. Don't deny that when somebody tells you that. Don't push off and say, nah, but thank you. Thank you. We pride ourselves in being the best and making sure that we're coming across professional and making sure you're comfortable with the entire process. If you push that compliment off, always take a compliment. And the reason I'm bringing this out is a lot of salespeople I shadow and coach, and me in the early years, I would object to that objection because it's false humility. And it's saying, hey, you know what? No, I'm not trying to sell you. Come on. Why else are you there? Absolutely, sir. I'm trying to sell you, but I'm not trying to just sell you for me because I do want your business. I'm trying to sell you for what product is going to do for you. Because in this industry, I see too many people go cheap, and cheap is expensive. And what happens is when you do this, is you're going to get a product you're going to pay about 30% less for, but it's going to last only 50% the time my product I'm offering you is, but mine's going to have 100% less headaches during the entire process. Getting them to understand that you absolutely are there to do one job. Number one, you are there to sell and close the deal. We got to sell first. We got to close second. Remember, we talked about sales is not closing and closing is not sales. Sales is highlighting what something can do. Closing is getting them to see it emotionally, logistically, and moving into a transaction and getting the money for it and getting that business. Also in the close, we're going to talk about one thing we have not talked about yet, and that's the button up. What I mean by the button up is after you close the deal, how many of you guys out there like me have got a fantastic deal and you're excited and you put it down in the group chat that you closed the deal and everybody's congratulating you and you're doing all your paperwork and getting all the permits in place. Your office is getting all the permits in place, and you get the text, you get the call. We decided that we're going to go another direction, or we decided that it's too much money at this point in time. They cancel. I'm talking about canceling, guys. I've two things have never changed for me in sales. I've always felt a rush of energy whenever I sell a deal, little or small, it doesn't matter. It gives me such life, and I get so excited. And then I get sick to my stomach every time I lose a deal, and I'll fight tooth and nail for it. And when it comes down to avoiding getting a canceled deal, it's the button up. The button up is after it's done. Number one, if your company's not doing this, you need to do this. You need to get at least 30% deposit for smaller ticket items, at least 10% for larger ticket items. A small ticket item is like $5,000 to $10,000. Get 30% up front. If you're having a bigger ticket item, 15, 20, 30, 50, you need to get 10% up front. By getting a deposit up front and just declaring it non-refundable, letting them know right up front that we have to make an order. And when we order these materials in, we can't just return these because there's a stocking fee, there's this. And these are legitimate things. You guys know this if you're in the construction industry. It is a big hassle because it's not me just touching the deal. How many other people touch your deal in your industry? A lot. If you work for the proper company or if you own a business and it's set up properly, the salesperson's job is to sell the deal, do the preliminary paperwork to get it over to the estimator, or not the estimator, the expediter. And then his job is to get it over to the job producer. And then it needs to go through the permitting office there in your office. It needs to go through your scheduling department. And then also it needs to have somebody to sign off of it. Probably somebody, the CEO of the office, the manager of the office needs to sign off on every single deal. So you have several eyes looking at this, and there's a lot of time going through these different things. And having a way to briefly explain to the customer, saying, hey, just letting you know, thank you so much for your business. But just to be sure, we're good to go here. This deposit here is a non-refundable deposit. We will be putting the order in for the materials and we'll get it. Is there any reason at all that you guys would not be moving forward with this? And they just told you yes, right? And it kind of is contrary to teaching of a lot of businesses because they're afraid to lose the sale. But if you lose a sale after you've done a lot of work and they cancel, you never had a deal in the first place. So to know that you have the deal, do the button up. It's very easy to say yes, but once you have a non-refundable deposit, once you let them know that you're going to be putting the material order in when it comes in, I can't refund it, that there would be a cost, and you're just making sure that you're good to go, get that second yes to the deal. It's so important. If you're working with lower end products, not quite as important, but I don't care how small the deal is, I let them know that there's going to be an order put in place and there's a non-refundable deposit. And it needs to be somewhere in writing, guys, too, on your contracts. I'm not a lawyer. We have lawyers who work with FC who can set it up properly and all the proper documents and things like that for signature lines and all, but it needs to be done in the right way. The last thing that we want to do in the button up, though, is we don't want to make the customer feel uncomfortable, undo the sale. That would contrary belief to the button up, right? We want to button up that deal so they understand that they're committed, and more importantly, that we are committed. So in the button up, 3 things: get a deposit, make sure they know that you have to order material, and then make sure that they are comfortable with their decision. If you do those 3 things, you will not have cancelizations. I've had 0 people cancel with me when I've done those things properly. Whenever it's always that deal where somebody says, "Oh, it's against my religion to give a deposit. It's against my principles and beliefs to get a deposit." Okay, so how do we get around that objection? I'm not going to give a deposit. Never do that. A herd scans. I'm like, again, always agreeing with the customer, right? You're right. There's a lot of contractors and they do this and that, and you should not be giving a deposit or 100% of the money up front. That's why we only ask for 30%. That's why we only ask for 10%. And the reason we do this, Mr. Customer, is not so we have cash flow for our company because we can't afford to order materials. It's just to make sure that you're committed. Again, say it right up front, just to make sure you're committed, sir, because you do have these people who say, well, I'm not gonna, if your company can't afford to buy materials without me paying you anything until you come out here and install it, I don't want you working for me because how can you guarantee your warranty? Legitimate, right? So don't ever use that cheesy line. Well, we need the deposit to pay for the materials. That makes you sound like an amateur and cheap and makes you sound like you cannot hold up to your warranties. So don't say that, and that's not the reason for deposit. Be straight with them. You've been straight to this point. That's how you got the yes. It's so you're committed to the deal. And then just as you're committed to the deal, we're committed to the deal. And what happens, Mr. Customer, a lot of times is if we don't get these deposits, things happen in life, and I get it. Things change, and this contract here has to touch 5 different desks, and it's a lot of time that goes into scheduling of permits and ordering the materials. You know, that's also their stocking fees that come back with that as well. So if somebody does cancel, it does cost us a lot of money. And it costs us a lot of time, and that's really our biggest asset as a company is our time. So we just want to make sure that you're committed and comfortable. And if you're unable to give a deposit, I do apologize, but we just can't do business together. And say it just like that. Every single time, well, let me change that. 90% of the time, when somebody said they resisted on the deposit and I did not get that deposit, what happened is that deal ended up not going through, ended up canceling. And it never pays. It never pays. The 10% of the time, of the 0.5% of the time it's going to happen, is that they're going to cancel or not do the deal with you because you're asking for a deposit. Well, guess what? That's a very, very slim amount of deals. You do 100 deals and 1 deal is not going to do it because you don't get a deposit, but they would have anyway. Hey, you saved yourself trouble because you don't know which ones are going to commit and not without those deposited. So we talked about the closing, the different closes and all. Now we talked about the button up. Guys, if you have done everything right from start to finish to this point right now, you're going to have a deal. You're going to have success. Guys, go out there and crush it. I'm so excited. I'm going to head straight from here. I'm going down to a business summit in Miami, and I'm just invested. I told myself this year, I'm going to spend more money on investing into myself because your self-growth is your biggest asset. That's it. The best investment is the investment you make into yourself. So my goal this year, guys, just being transparent with you, is to spend more money and more time on growing myself than I ever did before. I have invested close to $100,000 just this year in personal growth. And I'm not trying to wave a pride flag. What I'm trying to do is do this for you guys, is to show you how serious I am in self-growth. It doesn't have to be $100,000 for you. Maybe it's $5,000. Maybe it's just getting the $195 system here at FC for one of the sales systems or the marketing, whatever else it is. Make the small commitment. Take that small step. Just get to the starting line. Some people are further down races than other, but you need to make it hurt. If you don't make it hurt and make the sacrifice, you're not going to take the investment seriously. For me, I need to make it hurt. I need to be serious about my intention of growth this year. So I want to go 100% growth next year in 2025. I know we're a little bit away, but we're approaching it. So let's get our mindset right. Let's do this. Appreciate you guys.